Mr. VEJVODA, I would like to thank you very much for your willingness to give us this interview. Maybe to start with the first question, because we're talking about this European security architecture. Coming from Serbia and Vučić being the president for the last several years, I would like to ask you, with his policies, how do you see Serbia within a European security architecture?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you. Serbia indeed is the only country that has not introduced sanctions to Russia at this moment, but it is not unlikely that it will in the forthcoming future, given the challenges that lie ahead and given the fact that Serbia depends wholly on the investments coming from the European Union and trade, which is anywhere between 60 and 70% of the country. So it finds itself in a difficult position, given the government's decision to try and stay in between the two, even though the Russian invasion and aggression of Ukraine, a sovereign European country of 44 million people, is more or less clear to everyone. So my expectation is that sanctions would be introduced in the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Maybe to turn a bit to the people living in Serbia, there were many protests, I would say from the minority, but still a group of people, a considerable group of people, many protests which were for the Russian invasion, for the support of President Putin and his aggressive war in Ukraine. How would you comment on this scenario within a country which was bombarded also 20 years ago only? So how are and why are a group of people supporting the bombardment and the destroyment of another country, but being victimized for its own bombardment, which happened in 1999?
Yes, indeed, that's a very important question to explain. The fact that opinion polls show that there is a pro-Russian sentiment and even a pro-Putin sentiment. I would call that myself a superficial pro-Russian sentiment, because if you ask the next 10 questions about where people in Serbia would like to live, if not in their country, where they would like to send their children, where they travel, what kind of clothes and cars they buy, these would be all pro-Western answers. In fact, I would say with full confidence that we are, as other countries in the Western Balkans, pro-Western societies. And there is no dilemma about that. The reason that we have this is the fact that the country was bombed in 1999, that there is a sentiment that Putin is supporting Serbia on its Kosovo policy, and also the fact that there is a certain dependence on Russian gas, which Serbia acquires at somewhat cheaper prices than others. But having said that, I think the maneuvering space has narrowed. Mm-hmm. And the fact, as I said at the beginning, that we are a European country, we are encircled by EU and NATO member states, means that the moment of reckoning, the moment of choice is coming soon. Otherwise, the alternative is really isolation and self-isolation, which is not a policy that leads to the prosperity of a country.
The last question, Kosovo and the issue with Kosovo. You just mentioned that Kosovo is one of the maybe main reasons why Serbia and Vučić's government, or Vučić himself, was postponing his decision to implement sanctions and to clearly pick his side. But many would argue that losing Russia as an ally in the Security Council of the United Nations would also mean that Serbia is kind of giving up its policy towards the independence of Kosovo as a country. How would you comment on that? And is this true, that Russia is our only ally when it comes to Kosovo?
Well, to be honest about the Russians, they have always said in many instances, we cannot be greater Serbs than the Serbs themselves, which, if I were to translate, means if Serbia decides to solve this issue, who are we to stop that decision going forward? And again, in these years since the bombardment in 1999. There have been instances where seeking a solution to the Serbia-Kosovo, Belgrade-Pristina challenge has been put forward, and we have missed many opportunities to resolve that. My personal opinion is that we need to solve this as quickly as possible for the benefit of the people living in Kosovo, both Albanians and Serbs, and for the benefit of Serbia, because these countries need each other. The EU has been very clear: Serbia cannot become a full member, and it is a candidate, let's just remind ourselves, if it does not resolve the Kosovo issue. And in turn, Kosovo needs Serbia, because without Serbia's green light, it cannot get a seat in the United Nations. Now, we are again at a juncture where there is a full-blown proposal being put forward by the European Union, and in particular by President Macron and German Chancellor Scholz, that seeks a solution that many call the two Germany solution, but let's not get into the details. What I'm saying is there is an opportunity to make a next big step forward in finding a solution towards what is called a comprehensive normalization agreement.
Thank you very much for this interview, Mr. VEJVODA.
Thank you.